didn't do any presentations or anything like that. So basically, I'm going to get out of the way, and Gina does a lot of more of stuff that's going to affect you guys. And I think a lot of it's just to let you know when she has to hound and do some things like that. And the reason we have to do them and how it affects the students and how they grades reporting and getting them in and no-shows and all those things. I'm going to go over a basic few things, and these will be if you're interacting with students and things you can help them with. Starting with the FAFSA. I don't know who always had to do one or whatnot, but in general, students, some of the questions that we get a lot of times are, hey, first of all, you got to get a login, a user ID, and password. Those can be a pain in the butt nowadays of the way everything is. But if they've got to have one, and the parents got to have one. It doesn't matter which parent, if you're a husband and wife, we get those questions. It doesn't matter there. If you got somebody that's a split family, and we do get a lot of these, the law says you use the one that's 51% or more where they live with. Nobody in the country, obviously you can't verify that. So what we tell them off the record is look and see who makes the less money. So if you've got a mom and dad in a split home and one of them makes 100, the other makes 20, then obviously go with the one that's 20. Some of the questions come up if they're remarried, then yes, you have to use just like the step parent's income. We get a lot of these questions too. Well, we were married in 2019 if they were filling out last year's FAFSA. It doesn't matter. It's the picture that it's painting a picture going forward. And we also get a lot of questions like, well, in 2019, like I said, they weren't married or they weren't doing this or whatever. If you're helping with a FAFSA, just help the student know or think about they're using 2019 to project income. They're not using it that doesn't really mean anything back there. They're just projecting what the picture is now. So that's how I help explain some of those tidbits with them on those things. The FAFSA is getting a lot simpler. Right now it's like 75 some odd questions. In the next year or two it's supposed to be down to like 32, which will be a lot beneficial. It'll be easier to snap through it and go through. I've seen some of it, and it actually is a lot simpler to do. We can do professional development, we can do professional circumstances for somebody. If you've got a student that and says, hey, mom or dad lost jobs due to X, Y, or Z, especially if it's COVID related, because we've got all this COVID money, so we really got to do stuff to promote these people or help people that lost jobs and things. But if you know a family that said, when they're filling out the FAFSA and it says 100,000 and one of them's lost their job or something, or if it's 60,000 and one of them's lost a job, there are things that they can talk to us about that we can go through. And I won't go all the details with that, but we can adjust it based on whatever it's supposed to be now.
So great. This is an elevator question. You can begin filling FAFSA out July 1st? October 1st. October 1st, and it's due by?
You got a year and a half, basically. So it opened up for next fall, it opened up October 1st. So a senior in high school can fill it out October 1st to be ready for the next fall. It used to be January 1, and backed it up to October, which is another reason they allow you to use 2 years back on your tax returns. The not MESD, but the help scholar, the stuff on the state aid, it opens up in January, and like for the help scholarship, which really helps a lot of students, like it's an income based, it closes like the end of March or 1st of April, so there's a short window on it. There again, I think it's all going, they're revising all of that, so I think it's going to be back to one scholarship with, they're not going to have help or MTAG and all that stuff. They're going to do one, they're going to call it a one something or other, and it'll be a smaller amount. That hasn't been passed by the legislature yet. As far as our office goes with trying to think of what else I could tell you to get out of the way, but,
MTAG has till September 15th.
yeah.
They're both state, but one is March and the other one is September the 15th.
So like if you have a high school senior right now, that it opened October 1 of 2021, and they would have until
June the 30th of 2022?
It's actually,
year.
2023.
it goes,
Yeah.
And we can go back and reapply, you know, if they come in late.
Yeah, that's what I was
Sometimes,
thinking
like,
about, late
that's
applying.
usually up to him. But usually, like, if they were here in the fall, but they didn't fill it out and they're here in the spring,
right.
I'm not real sure what.
No, it's federal law, and I have to do it. The only thing with them is if they were eligible. The only thing that affects a student that does it late, if they do it in January and they were here in the fall and just didn't think about it, whatever, I can only pay them for what they earned. You know, if a student got all F's and they were here and filled it out regular, then they get paid for their A. But if they filled it out in January and then went back in the previous fall, I was trying to pay it, if they only passed 6 hours, I can only pay them for 6. So
I think really where it affects me is like if we have late applying students and they say, I'm waiting on my financial aid, and then like I have like virtual child program that they're using, so you know assignments are being given, but they don't have the program yet because their financial aid hasn't come through. That's, I guess, where.
Yeah, somebody fills it out. You know, I always say, is there a deadline? I say, no, but if you want to use it to pay for school, then you better have it done first end of June at the latest to get them to do it. But how that process works, and this will help you understand, once you fill out the FAFSA, you've got, it takes 1 to 3 days, on average 3 days before I can even see it. And then I do downloads usually every other day because I'm doing for 2 years, so I'm doing one every day, I'm rotating years. So if you got somebody fills it on Monday, the feds may not process it till Thursday, and I can't do anything until I see it. Now David calls me and says, hey, I've got one here that, is there anything that, you know, one of those cases, I can log in and see that they're getting a full payout, they're not verified, and I can say, okay, we'll give them a charge slip at the business office. Or, you know, something like that. But then I have to be able to see it first. So if I filled it out on Monday and it hadn't processed, I can't help.
But they're going to get an email as soon as they fill it out saying it's been processed. And that's where a lot of people don't understand that part. Well, he filled it out and it says it's been processed. Well, Greg has to do his.
And even, you know, they'll get that email with, like I said, once it's processed. So they're talking about 3 days. And if I do one, you know, if I just missed it, sometimes I'll do one that day and they hadn't posted it that day. Well, then you got another couple of days. Don't let a student freak out. You know, call me and I'll log in and see if I can see it, or anybody can in the office can log out in the Fed side and see it. And if I can't see it, I can't help. And if it's a verified, when we go back to actually verifying, then I have to have those documents. Which leads me into the next thing. Starting this year, we won't be using paper forms anymore. We've purchased something called Campus Logic, where the student will submit their documents using or an app on their phone or a web page or something. They'll log in, it'll look like Northeast Page, just the same old stuff it normally is. And they'll enter their information, and verification says how many is in a household. You know, you got the 4 and 2. You'll answer those questions there, but it's got a skip logic thing in there. If you do it on your FAFSA, you put 3 on the FAFSA, and on this thing you put 2, it's gonna say, hey, you put 3 on your FAFSA, is this right? Did you typo or something? That'll save a lot of stuff when we get those forms and they fill the form out wrong or whatever, or they skip to put who's in there, who's in a household. So those things will help. When it gets to tax returns, they can submit it, take a picture with their phone, or they can take a PDF and upload it, or they can do whatever. So the student can sit there with the phone app and submit all that document. It comes to us, I'm looking at a screen, and it's smart enough, and it looks at that tax return using some OCR technology and says, these match, you know, go on. These don't, look at them. So our time of verification will go from 5 to 10 minutes per one, or whatever, to 2 to 3 minutes in some cases. They'll just be click, click, and kind of move on. this year we've been in a fantasy world because they're waiting verification on everybody. So it's been like, what are we supposed to do for a while? So that'll be new. They'll log into that single sign-on. That's same, we're all logging in now. They'll log into it, fill out those steps, whatever. We won't take any paper forms. It won't be like, well, they'll print you one out there. We won't. Because this is saved in that spot. It zips it into Banner. I look at it on Lincoln Banner and I can see their tax return. It's all there. So we will not have any paper forms. So if somebody walks into the office with one, we're going to say, hey, David wants to fax me one. Like, no, I'll just have them to go to their phone and take a picture of it, submit it using the Campus Logic, and we'll be the help desk for that. So they'll have a different number on it, but that's how that process will work.
Do y'all still have the lab, like the computers back there where people still help?
Yeah. I actually get to college has a scholarship, so we have a scholarship person back there, and then we actually have our work studies that do it as well.
Some of the times we have kids Zoom in from off-site campuses to get some help too.
Really?
That's, I don't know if you know that or not, but right now we are doing those Zoom meetings with all the high schools. They haven't necessarily released us. I know some of the recruiting are going into campuses, but they haven't necessarily released us into going because it's a right there one-on-one. We're not talking to a group. And so when Ray and the team decides for us to go back out, we're going to kind of survey and see what it helps. I like the Zooms a lot better because you can be in work in your office and not having to come to the school as a parent. And then, you both log in and use the same screen. So it seems like it works very well. We just got to get the culture there. Some of the counselors aren't the most excited about having to do something on that end. They like for somebody to come in and say, and they go do what they want to do. So that's a kind of a culture change that we'll work on. But we'll do whatever schools want to do and on that side of it. Repeat grades. I get a lot of questions about this. They'll call and say, as you're an advisor, you'll say, Gina has taken a class and this is, will the PAL pay for it if she takes it again? And I just got off the phone with one on this one. I'm trying to help explain. The PAL will pay for you to repeat a class one time after you've made a passing grade. So if you've got somebody that failed it 100 times or withdrew from it 3 or 4 times, whatever, then yes, it'll pay for it. Once you get that D or higher, you got one time to repeat it. If you withdraw, if you fail, if you do whatever, PAL will not pay for it. So I tell a student to either take 15 hours so that they get the full PAL, or if they want to take 12, they'll get 3/4 of the PAL. If they take, if you take 9, if you've got one of these repeats, you'll only get 6. So starting to see a little bit more of that. I don't know if it's COVID related, if it's just people taking classes they don't need or just trying to better their GPA. But I've had 2 today, and actually 3, the one I just left with. So that's how that works. They'll pay for it once, and then once you get the passing grades, you got one more time to take it. I'm going to shut up for a minute because what she's got is really going to help you really more. And also, if you've got any other questions, I'll kind of stick around, and if she runs out, I'll come up with something else. But
I have one thing to say about what he said. We get a lot of calls. Well, my advisor said I'm only taking 1 class, so PAL won't pay. That's not true. If their EFC is low enough, PAL will pay something. Now, it may not pay the full amount of what they owe, but PAL will pay something. So, but every person is different. We do not have the same case every day, or every phone call is different. Some phone calls are 30, 45 minutes, going and hunting down Greg, asking this, going to the admissions and getting stuff, and some are just quick answers. But do not tell them no, PAL won't pay. They just need to contact us, because then they'll come or call, well, they said it wouldn't pay. And I mean, I don't know anything about psychology, so I don't, just tell them, look, you're just going to talk to them. Because, it can pay at just a person-to-person basis. But what he wanted me to talk about was the C1s. when somebody doesn't or gets cut out, and I have nothing prepared, so you'll know it's just gonna be flying off the wall. But like, I do the cutouts. So like when y'all cut out a student out of class, once they get cut out of all their classes, I have to go in, and if they have Pell, we have to take that Pell out or reduce it, just depending on their cutout days, their day that they're cut out. And it's really hard if you, I know like there's so much going on, but it really helps if, say, stay on top of it, because we have a lot of kids who are getting paid money, who are getting refunds that are not coming back because the teacher didn't cut them out till November the 1st, and they hadn't been to class since September, you know. And then and that, I'm not really sure what that does. The school has to pay the money back, or?
Yeah, basically, you know, if a student does that and we overpay them, it's called an over award, and that student it falls in that category, then the school is on the hook for it, because we don't do one of those things. There are some schools that it's a nightmare with paperwork, but we eat the money. We don't send it back and make the feds chase them down, because it's like I said, it costs the school more money in the long run. So if Gina withdraws, or she hasn't been cut out, and we give her $3,000, she only earned $1,500. Now she owes back $1,500 from this semester before she can even enroll in the next one, and it's all because that the instructor failed to do, not fussing, but and it's a fact. They failed to do something, and then they owe the school that much money, and Chris is not going to let them enroll until it's paid.
And and there's people you've got students that know that, so they're just going to do it, and they're not going to come back, and they're not going to pay. But it really is, it makes it a little more difficult, because we only have so many days once they get cut out to send some information and stuff to them. It's 14 days, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Once that they get cut out. So that really needs to be like top priority. I know there's a lot of things, and people are expecting a lot of things, but it really does affect them later on, or right then. And a lot of the problem we have too is, if, let's say, one of your advisees come to you, because I believe they have to come to them to do withdrawals sometimes, right? Correct? Am I correct or not? So, making sure that they, like, some of them may come in October, but they finish short-term one. Well, you're processing a college withdrawal. Well, I have to go through and process. There's several steps that we have to, it's not just me going in and pushing a button. Like, there's several steps, and I mean, I'm fine, that's my job, that's what I'm supposed to do. And then I'll get an email 3 or 4 days later, well, he finished short-term 1, he got a grade. So it's supposed to be a class withdrawal. So then we have to go back and reverse everything, because that student can earn their Pell. So, and which I know, like, it's just mistakes and things happen, but that takes a lot of time, when at first, if you would have just said, did you finish a short-term class? Have you been in a short-term class? You know, and if they just said yes, then you could have just processed it, because it is actually a class withdrawal, because they have a grade for it if they finished a short-term class. So we had several of those, like after short-term 1 finished, we had several of those where I had already went out, processed everything, sent everything in, and they're like, he finished such and such class, he got a grade. So then I've got to go back and reverse everything that I've done, you know, and like I said, but it just would be better if it would have been done on the front end versus after all that work and paperwork and everything.
The amount of work that we do or not do is what we're paid to do. So we're not complaining about that. But what it does to the student, it makes it look bad, but because they get money they don't need. You know, you can see the problem they go through. Then they can't pay it back, and they can't continue their education. And hopefully they get it worked out. But then again, it's not an issue with us. But there's also an accountability with federal guidelines state that you must report. You got to know if we're required to take attendance, which we are, being an institution, a junior college in Mississippi, or whatever we are, community college. You're required to. Tells how long we've been around. Some of us. We're required to have a mechanism in place that lets the financial aid office know
if a student has been no longer attending class within 14 days. So if we get an audit and they look at the roll and they see your last date of attendance in science was X, and then we didn't get a notification until a month and a half later, student, the faculty member failed to do it, then we're in violation. And it's that cut and dry. That's what the auditors look at. So that you've got a window, you've got to know it. Senior colleges have to do it too, but since they don't take of attendance, they just have to know it within the 14 days. So though it's not like that, it's not just the work or whatever, and they,
That's what I'm
they
hearing.
don't complain about any of that. It's just the fact that the student really gets hindered on it. And then, if you have to do something 3 times because, I get tired of that. I learned a lot this semester, and I think some of you have already heard it. I taught a class this first time, an online class. Good gracious. I mean, the amount, it's not.
Tell us about it.
It is. I mean, it is. It's it's a lot of setup on the front end, and I won't go through all the details on it, but I learned a lot from it. It's understanding of take and roll and putting grades over here, and then even got to mention Canvas and Pearson and all that mess. But there is a lot to the job that you do, and it is. I got 20 students in mind, not to mention 250 or 300 you're dealing with. So I fully understand it, and it is a booger. But I did also get to see that it's not that hard to do the attendance. You just got to make time to do it. Just like I have to do stuff on mine. Like I said, none of this is a complaint session. It's just telling you how it is affecting the students and things like that. But I do feel for you, and I do understand, and it's not as easy because a lot of people say, well, my parents were teachers for 30 years in high school, and they was like, well, they're off in the summer. I'm like, well, go and teach, You got the choice to work at wherever you work versus teaching. So, and last time I checked, there's like a teacher shortage. So, there's no complaints on what we do versus what you're doing. It's just how it's affecting these students and can't come back. The other is on the bottom line. If I came to your department and said, I'm going to give you $100,000 over a 4-year period, you'd be like, awesome. But that's a realistic number because over the last 4 years, the school has ate about $100,000 in aid where we dispersed because teachers didn't come out or no-shows. I mean, that's another thing. No-shows, I get taking attendance, but if you're a no-show and you turn it in November, I don't get that. And I'm not being ugly. I mean, I did the class, I understand. But if you've got, especially an online class, you know if they've done any work or not, And now I do understand that there is an issue with Canvas and something or other on the no-shows this year. There was some kind of, I don't even know the technology with it, but Robbie might know what I'm talking about. But there were some that weren't showing up in your roll even though we had them. And we fully understand that, and I didn't count that because Dr. Ford and Sasser both get reports on if Robbie's failed to cut out somebody about 4 different times, and this is the amount of money they started keeping up with that just to see, not to bang somebody for the first time, but if you got a repeat offender that's been in 10 times, they're going to address it. Just because it's costing the school money, like I said, literally about $100,000 to $125,000 over the 4 to 5 year window that we just eat because the student's not paying it back, and that's even with the collection agency, the tax, that they're doing now. So anyway, I'll go ahead.
That's about, you covered the no-shows, and that was another issue. Does anybody have any questions?
Has it been any worse since that quarantine list started? Because that makes it really a little more, like it was so simple prior to the quarantine list. Now you may be waiting 2 weeks. Well, I guess now they've shortened it to 5 days. That's going to help.
Yeah.
But that 10 to 14 days that you were waiting for makeup work takes you outside the 14 days you were talking about. Has that been an issue or not really?
I'm sure it picked up some, some of the no-shows and stuff this semester, but anything that we're talking about now has been an issue for about 5 years.
Okay, so it has nothing to do.
Yeah, nothing.
So we're not messing up something based on that situation.
This has been going on since I was in Estes when I first got here with all of the things, and that's when they started keeping up with the dollar figures and whatnot. And like I said, not banging somebody on the head for failing to do it, but You know, after you've done it for, 3 or 4 times, then they want to know if they just need to talk to you. Are you having issues? Are you forgetting? Is your computer messed up or whatever? But I don't know of anything, nothing's wrong with her.
No, it only comes to us if you turn it in. And I had a student call and she was like, and I said, call and talk to your teacher. Oh, she will. I was like, I'm sure if you call and explain this to your teacher, she will. Oh, no, I don't know who it was. But finally I was like, you're just going to talk to your teacher. Like, that's between you and the teacher, whether or not she, you're probably not doing the work, or we wouldn't have this issue.
Right.
And I'll tell you, from our office standpoint, we get the same things you get. They tell you stuff, and I have been Brittany, they get tickled, but they'll tell her one thing on my end, and I say, Brittany, and I know Brittany didn't say that. And so I assure you, I said, I did one time. I said, do you want me to call her? I said, because I do know her very well. And I don't think that's the story. And they changed it real quick.
I don't think they realize that we actually know other
other. Yeah.
so they just try to manipulate.
But, take advantages of, you've got the emails, you've got all that stuff, ask us the questions, especially on the advising side, because y'all help me here. From an advising standpoint, if I go to David and say, I need 12 hours, David doesn't know that I've got an ACT scholarship. Then we get tons of those that lose the scholarships because they're only in 14 hours or less. I don't know how to help y'all with that.
I just try to put them all in 15, no matter what. If not, maybe 18, so they can drop something. But sometimes you don't have enough to give them. But I try to put them in at least.
And a good advisor is supposed to ask, do you have scholarships?
And they don't know.
I was going to say, sometimes
I don't know what they have.
I send mine to y'all. If
So,
they don't know,
I
I say, go talk to financial aid before you drop this class, or before you decide to go 15 hours, go talk to them.
I usually look in one stop.
I'll start saying,
But does ACT show up on One Stop?
It shows in
It may not show the amount,
It
but
can show amount.
But if you see ACT, ACTV, leadership, ACTA, ACTD, ACT1, then you automatically know they need 15 hours. MTAG, 15 hours, which MTAG.
y'all know what we're talking about when we say one stop?
No.
I don't know who has access to one stop or not, and that's something that I can take to Ray and ask as far as, is it okay to have, for the instructors to have it? One thing you can do, and One Stop is basically our Argos reporting system that we have, and I don't know if you have access to Argos or not, but if you don't, then it's going to be a bigger issue. But if you did, it's just a report dashboard that kind of lists everything for the student. You can also have them log into their Tiger portal on their phone while they're there with you, and they should be able to see all their scholarships and stuff that's there.
And I think it even shows admission stuff, and
shows what they're missing.
And it shows like their scholarship, a picture of them, like their scholarships, everything.
But
do ACT scholarships just start at 24? Is that the baseline for ACT scholarships?
They start at 19.
They start at 19?
19 is $200, but Leadership
But then,
Seed is a
it's
$50 scholarship, and it requires 15 hours as well,
So
and a
that's,
3.0.
yeah, so stuff like that, I was just thinking, you can see ACT scores as degree words.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And they may
MTAG requires 15
hours.
So I mean, everybody should start with 15 hours.
Everything but Pell requires 15 hours.
If they're in health science.
There is
there's like 5 of them.
But there's.
What do you mean by that?
There's like five majors that can get MTAG and ACT at a 12-hour window. And those are going to be, all of your dental hygiene is, respiratory therapy and nursing are the two that
Y'all
are.
type up something and send it out, we'll print it and just.
I've got it.
Oh, I don't.
I've got it because it's got all the
I don't have
codes to it and
it.
everything else.
Because it also gets confusing when you start doing guaranteed tuition. And there's
And see, that's 15 hours and it's 2.5.
Yeah.
MTAG is 15 hours, 2.5. ACT is 15 hours and 3.0.
Because I think we just got into that because Tiffany called financial aid, but I don't think she just said financial aid yesterday, but the girl's really got tuition guaranteed.
We got her.
And she's got 14.
Yeah.
Yes.
She really needs 15.
No, the dental hygiene, and we've got her fixed, but I know you're talking about, but dental hygiene is 12 on tuition guarantee and MTAG.
What about the returning students? Like, say they start, it's been a few years since they've been in school, life happens, whatever, and they're coming back and they're trying to get into, they've enrolled and they're trying to get everything squared away. What exactly can we tell them besides, just go to financial aid, they'll deal with you? Like, all right, so you're gonna need your FAFSA done, you're gonna need to, apply for this, apply for this, apply for this, go ahead and get this taken care of, then go speak to financial aid and they can help you figure out the rest of it.
A lot of those students are gonna be suspended. I mean, just because they went, or gotta have a bunch of hours, but that doesn't mean they still can't get aid and they don't need to fill it out.
Those I would say if they have questions, to go ahead and send them.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to help the front end on it, but those that are returning, most of them are not going to be eligible for any scholarships because they're, ACT that good. If I went 2 years and had a 3.0 and I went to work at Walmart for a year and I came back, then yeah, I could get my ACT. MTAG and tuition guarantee, you wouldn't.
But that's a Joey Ferris question, not ACT. Any institutional is Joey, because if you send them to me, I'm sending them to Joey, because I cannot answer for that department on the ACT, valedictorian, salutatorian, if they can have it back, if they can't. All those questions, if anybody, if somebody's out and comes back and wants to know about ACT scholarship, send them to Joey, because I want to send them to Joey, because I can't say yes, you can get that scholarship.
What you're going to, and I see you quickly realizing and seeing is I'll try to get you guys as the whole thing, a what if on, if you're, as far as MTAG, and it's really got two levels. You've got your state aid and then you've got your institutional aid, which is the 15-hour, the scholarships. Most of them are 3.0 with 15 hours. If you're in a strict division, like dental hygiene, then I can get you I can tell you now that your MTAG and your state aid is going to be the 12 hours, and even the ACTs are going to be 12.
But now band is 12 and a 2.0. Band, campus country. So if you have somebody that don't have ACT, but they're in the band or dancer, that's 12 hours and a 2.0 GPA that they have to have.
Yeah, we need to keep.
And I don't know why it hadn't crossed my mind in the first place, but it won't answer everything, but it'll still, you can point your finger and say, well, here's 90% of the questions, and I'll get that typed up in the next few weeks and try to get it look decent and easy enough to read. But you brought up something when you said, well, they go and don't do this, because you said, well, maybe put them in 18 so they can drop down to 15. This is, and I wish I had a whiteboard or something. Here, a lot of people, satisfactory academic progress, that's where the people are doing appeals for their financial aid when they lose it. So I know you hear that a lot. Well, I did an appeal with financial aid and I'm waiting to hear from it. What are they doing? Now, what is an appeal? How do you get suspended? There are two, I reduced when I got here, there were 10 criteria or levels, and I got it down to 2. There are 2 levels. You got students that are 1 to 32 hours, and then from 33 and up. So they're just, and then we have people that's got too many, and that'll be the third one. But there's 2 levels that you're going to look at. For those students who are 32 hours and below, they have to have a 1.5 GPA and passing 50% of their classes.
Attempted.
Yeah, anything.
The W's count as attempted hours.
Yeah.
Yes, so if I take 25 hours, or I take 12 hours and I withdrew from the whole one semester and I passed straight A's, then I'm going to be on warning because warning, you go to warning first. So, well, no, I would have been warning first. Mm-hmm. So then I'm going to be suspended because I haven't passed 50% of the hours I attempted, even though I have straight A's and a 4.0.
You do see a lot of those. Now the warning, those, they usually don't hit suspension. Somebody's gonna have a 4.0 when they come back. But that first time that you don't meet that standard, whether it's the first semester or the second semester, whenever it is, you take all you attempted, and if you hadn't passed 50% of those classes or had a 1.5 GPA, then you hit, we have a warning period. Then the next semester you come, if you don't meet it that time, then you're suspended. Now you can reset, you can go from warning to okay, to warning to okay, but when you go to warning to suspended, and you get okay, when I first got here, once you had one warning period, and that was it. You only got one, your lifetime, you got one warning. I read and the Fed said you do what you want to. You can give, once you reset. So you go to warning, suspended. But anyway, after 32 hours, it's 67% of your classes with a 2.0. And so those are the two levels of how somebody's suspended. And the other way is if they've gone over 150% of what it takes to get the degree. And we have that in our office, but you can look at your majors. You take how many hours in the catalog, say 1.5 times it, and you got 150%. 90% of hours or 96 hours is what so when somebody hits 96 hours, they're suspended max, and they have to do an appeal. They're gonna have to do an appeal for the rest of the time here. As long as the committee approves them, then we're okay. We've got criteria, and I won't go through that on how we can approve and not approve and those, but they're going to have to do it. And if you got a student who was on, they had 2 bad semesters, and now they got suspended, they came back, and I had a 4.0, and I did good. And why have I got to do an appeal again? Call your Congress. You have to. The feds make us do appeals until you come off, and our appeals will say pass all your attempts and have a 2.0 GPA, and okay, I did that. Great. You're still suspended because you're not meeting that 67% or whatever. Do the appeal, and it's going to be approved. If you did what they told you to do, I'll just check it off and go. But they say you have to do an appeal for every one of them. It would make our life a lot easier. So that's how people get suspended. I have a lot of questions with that a lot of times.
And one thing that's confusing too is academic suspension and financial aid suspension are not the same. Like those criteria are different. So like I had a student who was on probation and worked really hard because I kept saying, if you don't do this, you're going to be on suspension. Well, she came off of probation, but then got a letter from financial aid saying she was suspended. So that's confusing for students too, that those they're different. Like she worked really hard and wasn't expected to get the suspension letter, but it came down to she hadn't completed
So from an advising standpoint, because I may be given, I had a student last semester. I knew she was on an ACT scholarship, and I had been telling her you've got to maintain 15 hours. She was failing A&P at the end, so it's okay for her to withdraw from A&P or not okay?
She can withdraw, but she's going to lose her ACT unless Joey and them say it's okay to reinstate it. But that's not our decision, and usually with a withdrawal, I don't think they will.
I kept telling her that, and I finally said contact financial aid, and then she came back and said, well, I did. They said I could drop it, but I don't know if y'all did.
Yeah, I mean, you can drop it, and we're not going to tell them you can't, but you're going to lose your ACT or whatever.
Sometimes it's a no-win situation, because if you know that they're going to have, if somebody has, I'm not smart enough to get Andrea to do this, but if you had somebody that took 12 hours and they're going to have a 4.0, and the next 3 hours they were going to fail it, does that drop them below a 3.0? You'd have to sit and do some math work on that. But I've told some of them that. I said, look, I ain't smart enough to sit down and figure all this out with you. But if you think, if you withdraw from it, it's usually cut and dry. If your GPA is going to fall, if you're just going to fail that one class, and then your overall GPA for that semester is going to remain a 3.0 or higher, then, fail it. But they may not want an F on there too. So, it depends on what kind of ACT, if it's a half, and.
Okay, I got one, because this happens a lot. Like if we have a really good student and they've been dual enrolled, and so they've completed their semesters and it's December, they are at 62 hours, they're ready to transfer, but they don't want to transfer in December. They want to transfer in May. So if they come and take X amount of hours, let's say 15 hours, or 12 hours to be full-time, will FAFSA pay for that?
By law, once they get the receipt, if they're not taking class toward their major, then it won't. But for the last 12 years that I've been here, they came out with something to fix that so we catch it and know it, but it doesn't work. The feds were on it, we're gonna get you. You know, they created this.
So there's a loophole.
Degree works. It's supposed to be, and it's called program of study, and they're supposed to mesh, and it's supposed to say, when I run it, it says they qualify or they don't. You know, it was supposed to catch if you put them in, you're in 12 hours, and you put them in basket weaving, it's supposed to catch it. It doesn't. I don't know any school in the country that's been able to successfully really monitor that so the feds aren't hammering it. So now, yes, if you talk to me a year from now, maybe no.
So do you recommend, like, if I have, because that really does happen to me.
Right now, yeah, go ahead.
Just put them in classes, or do they need to come talk to you first?
No, I mean, just put them in it because it'll
If we
award
got
it.
into that, we thought certain LLSs wouldn't count toward.
No.
If it's in their major.
If it's not in their major, now here's where it gets caught. If you put them in there and it's not in their major and they withdraw from something, you know, they withdraw from college or whatever, and then Gina's doing the return to Title IV that we have to do, and she sees them there.
But y'all, we're not majors anymore, we're general studies, so now anything should be able to count towards
If
that.
it's a different degree, but we only have one general studies degree. So
Right.
if they were in digital hygiene going to,
Right.
then yes. But if they're in general studies and accounting major or whatever, I call
It
it
doesn't
major.
matter anymore.
Correct.
That's the way it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, ours is getting into one semester, ours has 11 hours, like our program only has 11 hours. And so.
Right now, you don't have to worry about it on our end, unless they withdraw from something. We're not going to
We
really,
can stick them in anything.
Yeah.
Like an LLS.
yeah.
Okay, one more and I'm gonna stop.
That's fine.
My stomach growling, it really is, I'm not kidding.
They just make faces at you.
Y'all probably can hear it. I don't have to. But anyway, this is the other thing that always scares me is guaranteed tuition, because I've heard these horror stories like, okay, this person was here on guaranteed tuition. And from what I understand, guaranteed tuition comes into play when they don't, it picks up where FAFSA does not pay,
Or
right?
any aid.
Or any aid, okay, then guaranteed tuition kicks in. Well, and then, I know this happened to a student. It was in December, they only lacked 9, or maybe it was just 2 classes, maybe it was 6 classes to be finished here. And they were like, well, I don't wanna come just for 2 classes, I'm just gonna transfer on to state. Well, they did, and they ended up owing a lot of money back to us, because with guaranteed tuition, you have to either graduate or complete 4 semesters, right?
That's the dual
That's the
enroll.
dual
That's the dual enroll.
I get so confused on this. That's dual enroll.
But with
deferred tuition.
Yeah, okay, that's deferred.
with the tuition guarantee though, they can only get $1,575 because they're assuming that they're getting a $250 MTAG.
Okay.
And we can't up it if they don't get MTAG, or can we?
Yeah, if they don't qualify for MTAG
But
for some other reason other than
any institutional, now if you get a Lions Club scholarship, that doesn't go toward your guarantee. But if you, any institutional scholarship, say you get a 200 ACT, you get the $50 leadership, and then you're in a dancer in the band, so you get 912.50, that adds up, and then the tuition guarantee will cover the rest.
And there's no, they don't have.
But an MTAG counts in on that.
But
So
they
if
don't-
it,
I'm sorry, they don't have to complete a certain amount of semesters to not have to pay anything back for that.
And that's
right?
going away
that's
too.
dual enroll.
It's going, okay, but
Yeah,
dual
that's the dual
enroll-
enroll.
But if they're dual enrolled, then they come in as dual enrolled,
That's
and
no
they
way.
have to complete 4
You're not
semesters.
gonna worry about that
Not
either.
gonna worry about, okay, then
Because
I'm
there's
gonna
no
raise
more,
that from my
there's
head.
not any more deferred tuitions. It's a $50 fee.
That's true.
$50 a class.
Yeah, so
I mean,
they got rid of that.
That's right.
You know,
Never
so they-
mind.
so-
Okay, well then, I don't know if I really ever learned it, so it's okay now.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Now everybody pays the $50 and you move right on with it. And
It always scares me that somebody's gonna owe thousands of dollars back to us. I just don't wanna do that.
there is one thing, you know, he said the 50% and the 1.5 or the 67% and the 2.0. If they're passing that, but they don't have the GPA, they can still be suspended.
Okay.
yeah,
So-
it's
Not both,
Yeah.
it's either or.
Those all those little different elements with it.
Gotcha. So did you say guarantee was going away as well?
I messed your mind up some more.
I'm sorry, y'all.
For the 8 or 9 counties that are doing the tuition guarantee right now, and we get these calls a lot, but the tuition guarantee, as she said, covers if you don't have any state, federal aid or whatever, it guarantees that you got 1825. That's for Alcorn, Tipa, blah, 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 whatever, Lafayette, Benton, and Tish, and maybe even Calhoun and Pontotoc on a secret basis. I didn't mention Prentice. Prentice is going to 250, period.
Oh, they're only gonna pay $250?
Yeah. And that's another nightmare. It's not for y'all, but just for informational purposes. If you got somebody on the Prentice County deal, they're only gonna get $250. And if you want to answer the question instead of me having to answer, like, why? No, our response to that is they'll have to call the supervisor because they did that. And that's not political, that's not directed. They tell us what they're doing. I can't answer, I mean, it's a budgetary thing, but our office will tell somebody that complains about that to contact their local supervisor on it. So that's going to be a headache for you guys that's not in Prentice, but you may deal with a student. But anyway, that's changing this semester. The other ones are grandfathered in, but I won't bore you with all that too.
I don't need it, y'all.
That's all right. But like I said, got any questions? But I'm glad I will get y'all something, the list out those criteria.